Welcome to another episode of our video series of the Philosophical History with Contemporary Critique.
Hello. It's great to be back. How are you doing?
Doing very well, thank you. I'm excited for this one. We're about to tackle a figure who is just so foundational. He practically invented a whole way of thinking, yet we have absolutely nothing written by him. We're going into the world of Socrates.
It's the ultimate paradox for a historian, isn't it? You have arguably the most influential philosopher in the Western tradition, the person who really turned philosophy towards questions of ethics and virtue. And yet everything we know is secondhand. It's a fascinating puzzle.
It really is. He lived in 5th century BC Athens. He wrote nothing. So I think the first thing we need to establish for everyone listening is, how can we be so sure he was even a real person?
That's a great question, and it's mission critical. He's absolutely not a mythological figure. And the reason we're so certain is that we have multiple independent sources talking about the same guy. You've got Plato, his student, you've got Xenophon, another associate, and you even have the playwright Aristophanes, who relentlessly made fun of him.
Right.
So when you have these different accounts, some friendly, some hostile, all pointing to the same person with the same habits in the same city who met the same end, well, you can cross-check them. The overlapping details give us a historical certainty that's beyond any reasonable doubt.
And the time he lived in, it wasn't some peaceful academic retreat. This was a period of just staggering change and violence.
Oh, absolutely not. He was born around 470 BC
Yeah.
and executed in 399 BC. He lived through the absolute height of Athenian democracy and its empire, and then he witnessed its complete and bloody collapse during the decades-long Peloponnesian Wars against Sparta.
And he fought in those wars, didn't he?
He did. He was a hoplite, a heavy infantryman. So you have to imagine, his philosophy wasn't born in an ivory tower. It was forged on the streets of a city in a state of perpetual crisis war, plague, political coups. His obsession with justice and virtue, it was urgent. It was a desperate search for solid ground when everything else was falling apart.
I find his refusal to write so relevant today. We live in an age where every thought is recorded, broadcast, put out there for posterity. He just chose not to.
He chose dialogue over doctrine. That's the key. For him, the real work, the real philosophical energy happened in the live back and forth exchange with another person. A written text is static. It can't answer your questions. It can't challenge your assumptions.
It can't adapt.
Exactly. He wasn't interested in leaving a legacy for future generations. He wanted to transform the people standing right in front of him. We might call him an anti-textual influencer, but his goal wasn't self-promotion. It was genuine self-knowledge for others.
Which brings us to a really important distinction, one that got him into a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
The difference between him and the Sophists.
Yes. This confusion was weaponized against him at his trial, and it's still a common mistake today. The Sophists, they were, for lack of a better word, professionals. They were traveling teachers who charged often quite a lot of money to teach practical skills.
Mostly public speaking, right? Rhetoric.
Primarily rhetoric, yes. How to be persuasive in the assembly or the courts, how to make the weaker argument appear stronger. And philosophically, they often lean towards relativism, the idea that there's no objective truth, that, as Protagoras said, man is the measure of all things.
And Socrates was the complete opposite of that model.
Completely, 100%. He never left Athens. He was famously poor, and he absolutely refused to take any money. He insisted he didn't teach anything at all. He wasn't selling a skill. He was on a quest for something he believed was real and objective, universal truth. He didn't want to help you win an argument. He wanted to figure out what justice is in and of itself.
Okay, so let's drill down into that quest. If he's not teaching, what's the core of his whole project? Seems to be built on this concept of ignorance awareness.
That's his revolutionary starting point. It's brilliant. For Socrates, true wisdom doesn't begin with an answer. It begins with realizing just how little you actually know. He has this idea that, well, the person who thinks they know something perfectly can't learn it. Why would they? They're already an expert.
So the ideal state is to know what you don't know.
Precisely. It's a state of what you might call constructive humility. That's the only place learning can begin.
And this leads right into Socratic irony. Him going around Athens saying, I know nothing. Was that a genuine belief, or was it just a clever trick to trap people?
The million-dollar question. And people still debate it. Many see it as a kind of rhetorical strategy, a feigned modesty to get his opponent to lower their guard before he dismantled their argument piece by piece.
Which he was very good at.
Very good. But I think the deeper, more compelling reading is that it was genuine. Look, he wasn't pretending he didn't know how to get to the Piraeus or what the capital of Persia was. His ignorance was about the big things, the universal definitions. He genuinely did not have a final, perfect, unassailable definition of courage or piety or justice. So when he said, "I know nothing," he meant he knew nothing about those things with absolute certainty.
So he was basically trying to disrupt the whole city's way of thinking. His social function was to be an irritant.
That's a perfect way to put it. He saw society as a kind of organism that needed to constantly renew itself to stay healthy. His questioning, his problematizing everything was meant to force Athens to examine its own core beliefs, its gods, its laws, its morals. And you can imagine for people in power, that kind of constant challenge is, well, it's incredibly annoying.
Annoying enough to get him put on trial and executed. The official charges were, what were they again? Impiety and...
2 charges. First, not believing in the city's gods and introducing new divine things. And second, corrupting the youth.
But those are just the surface, right? There was a lot more going on politically.
Oh, absolutely. The charges were a smokescreen for a political hit. You can point to 2 huge factors. First, a public relations nightmare from 24 years earlier, the comedy by Aristophanes called The Clouds. It portrayed Socrates as this sort of bumbling, amoral scientist who teaches people how to argue their way out of paying debts.
A caricature.
A powerful caricature that stuck in the public imagination for decades. So many of the jurors were judging that cartoon, not the real man. And the second factor was guilt by association. The trial happened right after Athens had overthrown a brutal oligarchy and restored democracy.
I see.
And several of the key figures in that brutal regime, men like Critias and Alcibiades, had been in Socrates' circle. So for the angry, traumatized Democrats, Socrates looked like the guy who taught the tyrants. It was political revenge disguised as a trial about religion.
And yet, in his defense, he didn't apologize. He doubled down with that story about the oracle at Delphi.
He did. He explained that his whole mission started when the oracle said no one was wiser than Socrates. He said he was baffled, so he went on a quest to disprove the god. He questioned politicians, poets, craftsmen, all the supposed wise men of Athens.
And what did he find?
He found they were all bluffing. They were experts in their own little fields, but they all thought that made them wise about the most important things in life. And they weren't. He concluded his own wisdom was simply that he was aware of his ignorance, while they were not.
He called himself the Gadfly.
The Gadfly, a horsefly sent by the gods to sting the great but lazy horse of Athens to keep it awake and moving. But as we all know, people don't like being stung. Eventually, the horse just swats the fly.
While he was stinging people, though, he produced these timeless philosophical problems. We have to talk about the Euthyphro Dilemma. It just completely upends the whole relationship between religion and morality.
This is a cornerstone of Western ethics. He's on his way to his trial for impiety, and he runs into a priest named Euthyphro. And he poses this brilliant question: is something good because the gods command it? Or do the gods command it because it is good?
And it seems like a simple question, but it's a trap. Let's take the first option. If something is good just because God says so,
then morality is completely arbitrary. It's based on nothing but a command. As Socrates would have pointed out, the Greek gods and the myths did all sorts of terrible things. They lied, they cheated, they murdered. If good just means commanded by a god, then you have to accept all that as morally good. And that's a terrifying thought.
Okay, so what about the other side? The gods command it because it's already good.
Well, then goodness is a standard that exists independently of the gods. There's some concept of the good that even Zeus has to look to for guidance. This means the gods aren't the creators of morality, they're just good messengers. And if that's true, you don't actually need them to be moral. It makes them redundant.
That's just breathtaking. A question that dismantles the 2 main pillars of religious authority in under a minute. No wonder they found him dangerous.
Exactly. Now, this ties directly into his own ethical views, which were incredibly strict, especially on the idea of committing injustice.
Right. He believed that doing wrong harms the doer more than the victim.
Far more. His reasoning was that suffering an injustice might damage your body, your reputation, your finances. But committing an injustice, that damages your soul, your very self. He famously said he would rather suffer evil than do it.
Because once you do it, that's who you are.
Yes. You've essentially written that evil act into your own code. You've defined yourself as a person capable of that. It's an internal corruption that you can never escape.
And this leads to maybe his most famous and maybe most controversial idea, Socratic intellectualism. The claim that no one does evil willingly.
This is the mind bender. His argument is that when people do something we see as evil, They're doing it because, at that moment, they've mistakenly judged it to be the best thing for them. Maybe it's for wealth or pleasure or revenge. They've made an intellectual error.
But wait a minute, what about weakness of will? We all know people, we've all been people, who know something is bad for them, like smoking or eating poorly, but they do it anyway. They know the good, but they choose the bad.
That's the great challenge to his idea, and it's a very real one. The Socratic answer would probably be that, in that moment of weakness, your knowledge isn't truly complete. For the person lighting the cigarette, the immediate good of satisfying that craving is more real, more present in their mind than the abstract future bad of getting cancer. Their knowledge is being overpowered by a faulty judgment about what is good right now.
So every sin is actually just a math error, a failure of calculation.
In a sense, yes. All evil is reducible to ignorance. If a person truly, fully, deeply understood the harm they were causing to others and to their own soul, they simply wouldn't do it. It would be illogical.
And following that logic, the only justification for punishment can't be revenge. It has to be
Education.
Yeah.
It has to be corrective. The only point of punishing someone is to cure their ignorance, to teach them the true nature of the good. It's an incredibly humane and forward-thinking view of justice.
Yet when it came to his own sentence, he wasn't exactly cooperative. The jury voted to convict him, 280 to 220, and then he had to propose a counterpenalty.
And that's pure Socrates. Instead of suggesting something reasonable like exile, he sarcastically suggested his punishment should be a reward. Free meals for life at public expense, like an Olympic hero.
Which must have gone over well.
Oh, it infuriated them. It was seen as the ultimate act of arrogance. The jurors who were on the fence suddenly had no doubts. They voted again, and the motion for the death penalty passed by a much larger margin. He basically talked them into executing him.
And throughout all this, he maintained this incredible political consistency. He wasn't just anti-oligarch, he was anti-mob rule too.
He was a true independent. When the democracy was in power, he stood alone against an illegal motion to try a group of generals en masse, demanding they each get a fair individual trial. Later, when the oligarchs took over, they ordered him to help arrest an innocent man, and he simply went home, risking his life to refuse. He followed principle, not power.
His death, of course, wasn't the end. It was the beginning of this incredible rationalist tradition. How do you see him in relation to Plato and Aristotle?
They're the founding trio. Socrates is the relentless questioner who writes nothing. Then Plato, his student, comes along and writes, 600,000 words, essentially making Socrates the hero of his philosophical dramas, using him to build these grand systems like the theory of forms. And then comes Aristotle, Plato's student, the ultimate systematizer, who writes 1,000,000 words, cataloging and explaining everything from logic to biology.
So the real philosophical fight wasn't between those three.
Not at all. They're all on the same team, really. The real divide in ancient thought is between that rationalist trio and everyone else, the sophists with their rhetoric, the atomists with their materialism and chance, the tragedy writers who focused on fate and human emotion.
It's fun to think about what they would be doing today. Where would you place them?
Plato, with his grand systematic visions. He'd probably be a filmmaker, a director, or maybe a master strategist at a think tank, always building a world from behind the scenes. Aristotle, with his obsession with collecting data and classifying everything, he'd be running a huge research institute, working on big data, AI, maybe evolutionary biology. He was the first great empirical scientist.
And Socrates.
Socrates would be the person you see on the news getting arrested at protest. He'd be the ultimate public intellectual, practicing civil disobedience, challenging corporations and governments on the courthouse steps. He'd be completely unemployable and probably have a massive, unmonetizable social media following. He'd be a permanent, principled pain in the neck for the establishment.
It's so important to defend that tradition. In the last century, some thinkers tried to blame this kind of rationalism for things like fascism.
Which is a profound and dangerous misreading of history. Fascism and tyranny are fundamentally irrational. They run on myth, emotion, fear, and arbitrary authority. The Socratic call to give an account of your beliefs, to justify them with reason, is the most powerful antidote to that kind of thinking we've ever invented. Reason is the only tool we have for finding common ground.
And what's so interesting is that the ultimate Socratic legacy seems to be that life itself is a question. We have to exist in question mode.
It's so true. Think about it. Every small child is a natural philosopher. Their favorite word is why. And what does society do? Tells them, stop asking so many questions, that's enough. The philosophical attitude is about learning to tolerate the difficulty and the discomfort of living inside that question, maybe forever.
Accepting that you may never get a final answer.
That's the test.
Yeah.
And if anyone listening wants to see what that looks like in its purest form, I can't recommend this enough. Go read Plato's dialogue, the Phaedo. Just read the last few pages where Socrates is describing the effects of the hemlock as it poisons his body, all while calmly discussing the immortality of the soul with his friends. It's one of the most powerful scenes in all of literature.
A profound way to live and a profound way to die. An incredible recommendation. Thank you so much for this.
My pleasure. As Socrates may or may not have said, philosophy is the highest form of music.